We're going to, thank you. Call the meeting to order. And we'll start with the land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather today is the land traditionally used by the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Chinootan people. We acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the indigenous peoples with whom we share this land today. Are there any declarations of a pecuniary interest in accordance with the municipal conflict of interest? Seeing none. We have delegations this evening. We have Neil Malcolm, Director of Transit Services. Is Kevin Marshall here as well? I just got to get you approved. Is Kevin Marshall? Oh, sorry. Okay. So I'll need a motion that Neil Malcolm and Kevin Marshall be accepted as delegations. Moved by Councillor Herget, second by Councillor Brick. All in favor? And that's carried. Neil, there's a button to turn that.
The green light is on, so it's already on.
Good, thanks.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We just want to open by saying thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Neil Malcolm, the Acting Director of Transit Services with the region. It's probably been 15 years since I last presented at this podium. It was a long time ago. I was a planner at the time, and I forget the exact topic. It was about transit in Wellesley, but that was certainly before this business plan, so I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and have some discussion tonight, get some feedback. I think Kevin's going to take us through the presentation. We just want to open with a real thank you to Rick, the CAO, and the team for really this is a collaborative process, right? We want to make sure that the transit service that we're planning for the region, for the Township of Wellesley, works for the township, is affordable, and is something that you really want us to deliver on. So really appreciate the collaboration and working together with the team on making this, bringing the plan to the point it's at, and look forward to questions and discussion tonight. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Neil. As Neil mentioned, my name is Kevin Marshall. I'm the Manager of Transit Development, and just wanted, again, piggybacking on Neil, on behalf of GRT, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight and for working together to help make sustainable transportation the easy choice for Waterloo Region. So over the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through the different sections of GRT's business plan and the proposed transit investment priorities that will help increase speed and reliability, serve new areas, and make transit easier to use for communities across Waterloo Region. Maybe? There you go. Yeah. All right. Before we begin, I just want to take a quick moment to reflect on the last 25 years and the transformative impact sustained investment in transit services has had in our community. So for example, in 1999, you couldn't get a bus between Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo. 25 years later, I'm here to share GRT's first business plan since the successful launch of IM Bus and Light Rail, record-setting ridership, and strong public support for GRT to connect people, jobs, and homes across Waterloo Region. GRT's business plan responds to the region's projected population growth and transit priorities identified through the region's strategic plan, recent budget consultations, and projects by the area municipalities. Ultimately, the GRT business plan will provide staff with a roadmap as we prepare transit investment proposals for the next 10 years and beyond. Our guiding principles shaped our planning and engagement efforts and focused on asking how we can make transit the easy first choice for more people across Waterloo Region. So we did this to better understand how we can improve the concept of transit freedom, which is the idea that useful transit improves where you can go and what you can do in a 1-hour transit trip, so you have more time back in your day to do the things you want to do instead of trying to get to the things you want to do. So the plan's strategic focus areas, frequency, speed, customer focus, new coverage, and a simple and intuitive network are shown at the bottom of the screen, and were shaped by these discussions and inform each transit investment priority that I'll walk you through shortly. Just to take one quick step back, the business plan is actually made up of 3 main parts, which are supported by a new technology and fare strategy. So we have the conventional bus and train plan, which is sort of like our core network piece. We have our Mobility Plus and Qantas Transit specialized service plan, and then we have the Township Transit strategy. And each part of the plan was tailored through thoughtful region-wide engagement. So throughout the summer and fall, GRT reached out to riders, residents, partners, and staff to hear from everyone about their transit investment priorities and ideas. So our focus was on connecting with riders and residents across every community in Waterloo Region. We heard from more than 2,000 people that we connected with through station outreach, bus ride-alongs, neighborhood events, and online virtual sessions. We built a robust contributor network, which is shown on the left side of this slide. And in this diagram, you can see who we were able to consult with on multiple occasions and who helped us amplify our public engagement opportunities across their networks. In particular, for our consultation on the township transit strategy, we focused on virtual and in-person open houses in key community destinations in each township. And finally, we used our partnerships across the municipalities. So for example, and presenting here tonight as well, we worked with the Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy Working Group to hear local needs for economic resiliency. We also partnered with our public health team, which provides information and health resources to underserved neighborhoods across Waterloo Region using a GRT bus. So we joined their outreach in every municipality to hear new voices and ideas on GRT. Moving ahead, so there's several common themes emerged from our engagement, which supported comments heard throughout the development of the region's strategic plan and annual budget process. So this included better frequency and all-day schedules across our transit network, reflecting our shift away from a traditional 9-to-5 community, opportunities to speed up transit trips between the cities, expanding to new and growing areas of the region, including the townships, and a need to make transit affordable for those who need it most. A couple important things I wanted to highlight were notions around improved stop accessibility, which we're happy to share has been accelerated in both the cities and townships through the region's recent budget approval process, and enthusiasm for new and improved township transit options, not just among township residents, but also among city residents that want to connect to our rural destinations, which I think demonstrates the value of the region-wide transit network we're building here together. I'm going to walk you through our transit investment priorities in the next few slides here. You can advance for me, please. Might as well advance too while I've got you. There we go, that's perfect. So our bus and train priorities help achieve the strategic focus areas I've walked through that were identified by riders, key contributors, area municipalities, GRT, and the region. And they include increasing frequency to 10 minutes on weekdays on 16 key routes in Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo, adding trips to make our schedules more intuitive and reflect our shift away from a 9-to-5 community, introducing rapid highway services to give riders up to 20 minutes back in their day, particularly for trips between Cambridge and Kitchener or Waterloo. But we're also looking at some east-west services as well too. Expanding the service by bringing new routes to growing industrial areas and residential communities in Cambridge, southwest Kitchener, and north Waterloo. And launching more late-night service and introducing a 24/7 network on key routes to support our shift workers, students, and core areas in night economy. From the specialized service planning perspective, key priorities for the Mobility Plus and Kiwanis Transit Plan include meeting demand for Mobility Plus services and targeting no unmet trips with new staff, modern technologies, and a bigger fleet. We're extending Mobility Plus service hours in coordination with GRT's overnight service network expansion goals and enhancing the Mobility Plus customer experience. Now for the key piece we wanted to highlight here tonight, GRT has also developed a township transit strategy that responds to requests for better access to and from rural destinations among township and city residents, while also recognizing each township's unique community character. So the goal is to provide residents with better access to essential services and employment opportunities with our transit network. So the future transit network includes enhancements to existing fixed routes for Wilmot and Woolwich, future fixed routes for North Dumfries and Wellesley to connect to GRT's core network, the introduction of a new fixed route service to Breslau and the Region of Waterloo International Airport, and the introduction of on-demand transit zones and exploring commingling of services in each township to expand GRT's service area. So combined, our township transit priorities dramatically expand the service area of GRT to nearly all of Waterloo Region. GRT's fare strategy focuses on diversifying revenues, supporting service improvements, and promoting affordable access for those who need it most. We're looking at doing this by providing support to families and caregivers by introducing free transit for children 12 years and under, enhancing GRT's affordable transit program to provide bigger discounts to those with the greatest financial need, matching future fare increases to our annual service expansion, inflation, and comparable transit systems, and supporting our local workforce by expanding business account programs with GRT's new mobile app, GRT Pay. The transit priorities that I've listed here serve as an important upstream strategy as the region grows with care and really unlock tremendous potential benefits for Waterloo Region. So, for example, approximately 400,000 people and 200,000 jobs today are within 800 meters of the frequent transit network that's proposed. Under this plan, we look at new coverage proposed for Southeast Cambridge, residential communities, Cambridge industrial areas, Southwest Kitchener, North Waterloo, and transit options are proposed for every township. Compared to today, we improve transit freedom across the region. So the average rider can reach approximately 38,000 more people and 15,000 more jobs within a 1-hour transit trip. And commuters can save over 20 minutes for Cambridge to Waterloo transit trips. The last piece here is really important. Overall, transit trips become more competitive and more affordable compared to cars or rideshare. And this is what's so particularly important during an affordability crisis. So our future transit network can save people from needing to buy and maintain a second car, for example. This plan can help unlock over $1,000 in monthly income that would otherwise be trapped in car ownership and maintenance costs. So good transit really means more people have more money left in their pocket to live their life. Just moving ahead here, just want to highlight how this plan helps us work better with area municipalities. So the GRT business plan really is our playbook to work better with the townships and area municipalities to achieve our shared goal for sustainable transportation. Transit supportive policies and programs in the region and area municipal land use and transportation plans are critical to help us at GRT maximize the ridership potential benefits we've laid out in the business plan and the transit and investment priorities shared tonight, as well as our shared goal for livable communities. So pun intended on this last slide, next stops. We are just at the end of this process. We're happy to be here tonight, answer any questions you have. We will be seeking Regional Council's endorsement on the plan this June. So I'm happy to take any questions in this last slide here, just where you can learn a little bit more about the business plan. But thank you very much for your time.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Questions, Council? Well, Councilor Herget.
So I've never been on a city bus.
Yeah.
What does it cost to ride the bus?
So we have a couple of different options right now. So we have we now have a fare card product. So that, and then using our GRT Pay app, which you can download, it's $3. That's kind of our standard fare price. It's as of July 1st, the cash fare price, if you're paying with cash, is $4, and that's intentional. We try to get people onto the fare products. It's kind of like our old ticketed products.
Okay. And the ION is the same?
One system, one fare, and same with our township services. So for example, to Wilmot today, it's connected to our entire system. So you start that trip, you now have 120 minutes of transfer time if you're buying a single trip. So you can do your whole trip together.
So it's $3 for 120 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. And how much of your budget is funded by the user fees?
So that's, you got that on the fingertips?
For you, Mr. Mayor, so, it depends on the route, but overall through the system-wide, it's between 35 and 40% cost recovery from the fare box, and that fluctuates. Some of our core network routes are significantly higher than that. Our express routes, Route 7, ION, has a higher cost recovery. The more rural, the more residential or suburban routes, which has less frequency, lower ridership, they have a lower cost recovery. Cost of the system, 35 to 40%.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Council? Councilor Seven.
So at this point, you don't have anything like a day pass or a weekend pass, anything like that?
So we do have a day pass and group pass products as well too. So day pass is $8 and group pass is $12. Group pass allows you to have 5 people riding together. I'm excited to launch it with our GRT Pay app. We're trying to make day pass and group pass more easily accessible to more people across the region. Right now, you have to have our fare card and load that typically at a ticket vending machine. There is some opportunity to do it online, but having it on our payment app will make that a little bit more easy to use, yeah.
Great, thank you.
That's great.
Currently, I believe the township, we don't contribute, I guess, to the ION and that portion of the system. By bringing buses out here, what do we expect to pay for that portion of it, or what's your funding model around that, I guess?
Yeah, Okay, I can start it off, and Director Neil Malcolm might follow up. One of the big pieces is that we look at the services we provide to the township. So when it comes to the area rating component of it, that's why we work so closely with our township partners to identify the services we provide in the local area, and then that's part of the funding model. The other piece I wanted to highlight before I maybe hand it over to Neil to explain in additional detail is one of the opportunities we have is the ability to source upper levels of government funding to, I'll call it, kickstart some of these programs out the gate to demonstrate the sustainability and growth over time. And we benefit from being able to point to some very local examples of how how these routes are established into the townships, we see productivity increase over time and helps to generate a better return on investment longer term. But anything else to add?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. But there is a calculation that goes into play in terms of an area rating for the townships. So if you live in the urban area, the Tri-City area, a portion of your tax bill goes towards transit services. And in the townships that have a conventional bus route, like a Woolwich and Wilmot, it's area rated based on the amount of distance and time that the vehicle is traveling and serving that township. So in the townships that currently do not have a conventional bus route, including Wellesley and North Dumfries, you wouldn't be contributing to that area rating. On the specialized side, so now we have Mobility Plus in the Tri-City area, and all the townships contribute to a specialized transit service, the door-to-door service offered today by Kiwanis, which is one of our excellent partners, providing great service in 3 of the townships. In North Dumfries, specialized services provided through taxi operation right today. I really think there's an opportunity as we collaborate and move forward with the improved services in the township for conventional and specialized. We need to make sure we're focusing on the financial model, make sure it's affordable for township residents. That's a key part of the discussion. We've had a lot of discussion on that already. I want to make sure it meets the needs of council and the township residents.
Further questions? Just a couple of thoughts I had. My voice is a little bit rough. You answered the question about the funding, and I think I believe you would probably be applying for a pilot project to the government. And my understanding is that we would hopefully get a 2 to 3 year pilot program in place, because I think it takes that much time to build up the ridership, so that it runs basically on its own initiative. Is that fair?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, and you're well versed on it. Yes, the idea is that we often flag that it's it could take 2 to 3 years, and in some cases longer, for ridership to establish and mature on a route. But the idea is when we've tapped into some of these upper level of government funding opportunities, that is usually well understood. So we have the opportunity to build out that initial base service, see the ridership potential and monitor that growth over time as part of the funding piece, and then look at look at different options for how to sustain that service longer term once that external source of funding may run out.
And that's nothing new, because I think basically that's what's happened in Wilmot Township. No, in Woolwich Township.
The Route 79 pilot was funded by an upper level of government for a pilot phase. That's continued beyond the pilot phase. It's still in service, but that's exactly what we do, is seek to apply for funding opportunities from the federal government, the provincial government, to fund that initial, let's start the service, let's pilot it, let's build the transit culture in the area, and then seek to make it a permanent addition, depending on ridership and usage, of course.
Yeah, well, that's important for us. I think it's been discussed what our budget is for, a 1% increase, and it's. You mentioned, I think I read in here, I'm sure I read in here, a fixed route was your initial plan for Wellesley Township. Is that sort of in stone right now? There was some thought about moving through other municipalities as well at some point, or is that not?
Yeah, so I think I can answer. The fixed route from our analysis has the best initial return on investment as far as we can establish a culture of transit ridership. We can hit over 50% of the township population with that fixed route service that we're proposing as an initial route. And once you establish that, there's 2 different opportunities, or a mix of opportunities we can explore too, including serving that spine of the fixed route with an on-demand service to capture most of the remaining township, or even consider what additional services an extension of other services into the township could look like. Just to answer your question about where it would connect to, there was a lot of conversation with how we could connect to St. Jacobs Market, for example, across the township boundaries as part of this service, and that's definitely something that's been considered for the fixed route service as well.
So, yes.
Thank you. We just add one quick piece. We've had a number of meetings with the township CAOs, including Rick, and through those discussions, we've really just want to work together to say what's going to work for the township and get your perspective and feedback on what type of service you think is going to work in the Township of Wellesley. And I think we've more recently landed on maybe an on-demand model is something that maybe we start with in Wellesley. In Wilmot, we've got a fixed route service that's doing very well. The corridor in Wilmot is very clear through Baden, New Hamburg, really sets up well for a fixed route and adding more service to that. We have a service to Woolwich that is the Route 21, a great connection straight through to Elmira. But for Wellesley and North Dumfries, maybe it's more of an on-demand model where we try and say where people are trying to get to, set up those on-demand zones and make those connections to a fixed route, either at a terminal in Waterloo or Kitchener or somewhere in the township. So really, I think we just want to keep working with the township and the CEOs and say, what's the best solution for your township?
Bottom line is for $4, I could get picked up in the village of Wellesley and I could end up in Cambridge.
Absolutely. If you pay cash, it could be less if you pay with a reduced cost
I'll keep
GRT
that in
pay app.
mind.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, one system, one fare, because Kevin had described, right? So
Looking forward, I think we're going to be talking some economic development later this evening, and it was nice to see that there's so much focus in the economic development piece about the need for rural expansion, and I think that these two just sort of go together perfectly for this evening. So I thank you for your time. Any more questions? Well, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay. So we are going to go into a public meeting process. I need a motion that the committee of the whole meeting adjourned to hold a public meeting with respect to ZBA 01-25-5055 Almond Line, zoning bylaw amendment. And I'll ask Tim to bring the thing forward. Oh, I need a motion. Councillor Brick, Councillor Herget, all in favor? And that's carried. I gotta get back on track here. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak. Good evening, Council. This is our first zoning bylaw amendment of the year. We're almost in June, which is interesting, but nevertheless, it's at 5055 Ament Line. You want me to run it, or?
Do that later.
There we go. So if you recall, actually, I think this is the first time that this request has been heard by this council. I think we've heard it a couple times before, but we're dealing just outside of Linwood here, first farm to the east. And we have a sawmill use that's been portable sawmill that's been operating here under a temporary zoning bylaw since 2019. And the blue area there is kind of the general area that it's operating in, but the zoning bylaw amendment itself has a specific delineated area, and I can talk about that a little bit later. So when we're considering zoning bylaw amendments, we have to see what the official plan says about that. A sawmill that's on a farm, we would consider that what's called an on-farm diversified use. I think you've heard me speak about those before. In our official plan, we call that a secondary use. So secondary uses on farms are allowed. They're allowed in the prime agricultural area and the rural area. And there's a number of different policies that we apply to that. I haven't put them all on here. I put a few of them on here, the relevant ones. Obviously, the property needs to remain zoned for agricultural purposes, so that is true in this case. The proposed use needs to be secondary. Okay, so farming still has to remain as the main use on the property. the use can't be obnoxious or have any offensive or dangerous substances or materials in the manner of odor, dust, smoke, noise, fumes, vibrations, etc. Certainly a sawmill can be noisy at times, as you can imagine. And so as part of the very first time that they did this, they asked for this amendment. They did a noise study, where they reviewed noise levels and came to the conclusion that it can be operated under the noise regulations. And since then, there's been no change in the manner of operation or the size of the operation. So therefore, we didn't ask them to redo the noise study. Certainly, we would have if there was, some large increase in capacity or more machines or those types of things. Or if we got a significant number of noise complaints, say from residents, we'd probably ask them to do that again. But having none of that, we concluded that the noise study they did was valid from previous. Anything that is a secondary use has to be limited to dry manufacturing, so things that are uses that don't use a lot of water, which in the case of a sawmill, that is also true. And then, of course, the owner must obtain a certificate of occupancy from the township, which is pretty standard. That seemed to be working for me. Amy, if you could go forward one. Thanks. So in terms of the zoning bylaw, the main consideration in this application when you look at on-farm diversified uses is that our zoning bylaw says that on-farm diversified uses need to be owned and operated by people that live on the farm, or the owner that lives on the farm. And in this case, it's not. It's operated by somebody else that doesn't live on the farm. Okay, so that's the main reason why they're asking for amendment to the bylaw. So, like I said, it's currently zoned agricultural with the site specific to permit it as a temporary. That's what the T is, so temporary use for up to 3 years. And we're at the end of that 3-year period, which is why they're coming back again and asking for a renewal. The last time in 2022, when I went out there, the operator of the sawmill said, let's just make sure that we're operating within the area that we're allowed to, right? That's a pretty key component of this. You don't want these uses kind of migrating a little farther every year, more piles of logs, and then all of a sudden we're at the point where we're dealing with some type of industrial sawmill. So I went out there, we staked it ourselves. It was included in the zoning bylaw. I went back out there just recently, and that area has all been kind of concreted, paved, so you can see where it's being operated. It's all operated within the area that we've asked them to operate in. There hasn't been any additional equipment there. It's the one portable sawmill that's out back of the one building, with the kind of former barn, I guess it would be, your barn. And so, again, what they're asking for, the applicant is asking actually for a permanent rezoning, but I don't think staff, we're not comfortable with that at this point yet. Plus, it also gives council the opportunity to continue to review this for compliance time and time again to make sure that they're operating it the way that we've asked them to. So the recommendation before you tonight is going to be to extend it for another 3 years, but we'll see that at the end. And it's also important to note that one thing we checked out was there any complaints that have come in over the last little while about this place. Nothing into the building department or bylaw complaints have come in. So that's also good news. So this is the actual area. I don't have it superimposed on the air photo, but if you can imagine that kind of cutout areas where kind of the barn area is, and the sawmill is operating kind of out back with a concreted area for laydown area for logs and milled lumber and that type of stuff, all outside. So we're continuing to propose that exact same size. We're not proposing to increase it or anything like that. That's kind of what it looks like. That's a little bit. Probably could have taken a closer one for you, but you can see there's a bit of a kind of a visual barrier there that they've put up. a bit of noise attenuation comes out of that, but it's not, an official acoustic, engineered acoustic noise barrier or anything like that. So that's kind of what it looks like. It's from behind the barn. You can see a small building there that they use from time to time as well. So the recommendation before you tonight that the council adopt the zoning bylaw to permit the sawmill to operate as a temporary use for a period of 3 years. I know we received certainly one comment that we put on the agenda as an addendum this afternoon. I'm sure you've read that. And I'm happy to speak to that comment if you want to, or some other thoughts, or just happy to take your questions.
Okay, just before I open it up for questions, I'm going to ask the clerk to explain how this was advertised.
Notice of the public meeting was placed on the township website, mailed to properties within 120 meters and of the subject property, and a sign placed on the subject property.
Also, I'll state that any person who wants further notice of a passage of a bylaw should give in writing their full name, address, and postal code to the clerk prior to leaving the meeting. So now I can open this up for questions to staff. Councillor Harrigan?
If the owner of the sawmill sold or gifted the sawmill to the landowner, and now the landowner is operating the sawmill, would he be restricted to the area that you've staked out, or could he expand the operation?
So I can't remember the exact numbers. We assessed this like we assessed it as an on-farm diversified use, just like we would any other shop. So I'd have to do the calculations to see if there's more expansion area available or not. But essentially, the rules in the zoning bylaw are you're allowed to have 2% of your land area up to a hectare that can be used for an on-farm diversified use. So certainly, I think it's probably safe to say that there would be room to expand if it was owner-occupied.
Right.
And then of that 2%, you're allowed to have 20% up to about 6,000 square feet, 12,000 square feet, thank you, Rick. 2% of that area up to 12,000 square feet as the operation of your building or buildings. You can have one or two buildings.
Okay, so there would be a little bit of room to expand probably, but it's not, he would still be restricted.
Yes, yeah, you'd still be restricted for any on-farm diversified use, whether this was owned by the farmer, if the farmer was owning it, if the farmer was operating it, it would follow those same rules. So the only difference here really is that it's not being operated by the owner of the farm. I think that's fair to say.
Question, Councillor Wagner?
Do we have any other farms that are operating somebody else's business on their farm? Or is this the only one in this township that we've allowed a temporary use for, where somebody that doesn't own the land is actually running a business off of somebody else's land?
Officially, yes. Yeah, I don't know, I can't speak to the fact of whether this happens unofficially or not. Presumably, so the certificate of occupancy process is how we monitor that. So we monitor that on, I think every 2 years we go out to each one of these where we have a certificate of occupancy and make sure they're using the property for what they say they're using it for. So we don't have any indication through that process that I'm aware of that we have anybody else doing this. So that's, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us why we don't generally do this type of thing, allowing somebody who doesn't own the land to actually run a business on that land?
Right. So one of the reasons I think, and we've kind of taken a scan of, well, two things before I answer. I'm going to answer that, don't worry.
Yep.
But two things I want to point out before is that there's no provincial requirement either way to say that these on-farm diversified uses have to be operated by the owner or they can be operated by anybody else, right? So there's no, the province produces guidance through the provincial planning statement, as well as the guidance on agricultural uses on farms. And there's nothing explicitly in there that says, hey, you know, your zoning bylaw needs to say that these things are owned and operated by the people who own and operate the farm. Okay, so, and when you do a scan of zoning bylaws in and around here, some do it that way, like us, and some do not, right? So there's no provincial requirement on that. I just want to be clear. I think one of the reasons why we do it is so that, you know, the purpose and intent of this is to make sure that farmers get the opportunity to have a diversified income from their farm, which is now a policy of the province. You're allowed to do this. We want to support that. I think that's a good thing. You know, it's always a balance between, okay, well, even if they're not operating it, they're still gaining an income from this, right? Which, in my opinion, would be the purpose and intent of it, is that you're still gaining an income, whether you're owning it and operating it or not, or collecting rent off of it. You're still gaining a diversified income, let's say. Having said that, it is, to answer your question, it is a slippery slope if we were to change the zoning bylaw to say, okay, anybody can do this. I think it is right to look at it on a case-by-case basis and see if it makes sense. Because certainly you can imagine a situation where perhaps one or two business people might want to own several of these and operate them as a bit of a scattered industrial park, right? And that's not really what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to maintain something that's small, that can be used to diversify income during tough times, or when the farm's not operating at an income level that people expect. We're not intending this to be an industrial park scattered across the landscape. In this case, I don't think that's the intent here. That's not really what's happening. I think what we're running into is a limited land supply where these types of uses can operate. So I guess the question in my mind when I look at this from a planning perspective is, what is the happy medium here? Is it, it's certainly not to zone it permanently. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think the answer is to refuse it outright. This is kind of the happy medium I think that we came up with a few years ago. And if it's operating under the rules and what we've asked them to do, and there's not a whole number of complaints, and council gets to review it every 3 years, you know, I think that's reasonable from a planning perspective.
May I just say one more thing? I was here in 2019 when this came before us. This was very contentious. There were a lot of unhappy neighbors, very unhappy. And I think maybe there aren't complaints coming in because I think maybe they just keep hoping that we will terminate the temporary status. That's just my opinion, because I did live through those meetings back in 2019 when this was proposed, so.
As a continuation to what Shelley just said, is there a maximum number of times that someone can apply for a temporary bylaw amendment, or is it?
Right. Yeah, so the Planning Act is let's call it a little bit vague. So, you know, when we're dealing with garden suites, for example, you certainly can't pass a temporary bylaw that's longer than 20 years, right? But it doesn't say anything about a combination of temporary use bylaws, right? So let's assume for all intents and purposes that you wouldn't want to do it for more than 20 years, just say. Like, I don't know what the legal interpretation of that is. It's probably generally a good guideline. That's what I would say.
Any other questions? Questions? Okay. No.
Was there something, and I'm trying to remember back, was there something about the distance from the sawmill itself to the property line of residential homes? I thought I remember something about that, but
I'm
need to
gonna
look it up.
I can't remember exactly, I'd have to pull that out for you, but I'm gonna guess that it was related to the noise bylaw, or the noise study, where it was, it had to probably meet a certain distance
Just to
from the
keep the
settlement
noise.
boundary, just to keep it within those levels. I mean, the interesting thing about all this is that, like, if I can just add an anecdote, is that, like, we wouldn't even be here if it was, I'm sure you know this, if it was operated by the owner of the farm, right? It would go through a site plan approval like our regular on-farm diversified use. Probably wouldn't even get a noise study. The whole reason it gets a noise study is because it's a zoning bylaw amendment, and that's a requirement that we can add there. We can add it on site plan if we have to, but on a zoning bylaw amendment, we have to, right? So that's what makes it so interesting. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it certainly makes it interesting. And
One other thing, sorry. Included in the bylaw amendment, is there anything about the dust control? I've heard comments about the dust. That's pretty much it. It hasn't been about noise. It's been mainly about dust.
right. If that's the case, then I would encourage people to file that complaint with the township, right? If we don't have any record of those things, then it makes it difficult. With the dust, you typically wouldn't put that in the zoning bylaw. You may do like, let's say we had a number of complaints that said, wow, it's really dusty out here, and they came in for their zoning amendment. Then we would say, hey, you know what? We think you should do a dust control, dust suppressant study or something like that. You wouldn't necessarily, you can't have a condition in the zoning. Conditional zoning isn't allowed in Ontario, so you can't really attach anything there. So what you would do is do the study in advance of the zoning bylaw amendment, and then once you're comfortable with the mitigation that they're doing, then you would go ahead and decide on the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you.
The only other thing I'll add, Mr. Mayor, very quickly, is that one way of doing this, it's always, it can be tricky when you're creating zoning de facto on a case-by-case basis. I always thought that once we finish the official plan, if this is a significant concern of council, then we would review it at the time of the zoning bylaw update, which is required kind of within 2 years after the official plan update. That's in the Planning Act. So if that is, let's say that's 2 years down the road, then you'd have a crack at looking at that prior to if you were to approve it prior to this expiring the next time.
Okay. We're good. So I'll read this. Are there any persons who wish to make oral or written submissions in opposition to the proposed bylaw? If so, would they please give their name, address, and postal code to the clerk? Are there any persons who wish, I don't see any. Are there any persons who wish to make oral or written submissions in support of the proposed bylaw other than the applicant? Give your names, addresses, and postal code to the clerk. I don't think there's anybody online, is there? No, okay. Would the applicant like to make some comments? I believe he's here. If I could get you to come up.
Good evening. I think Tim covered it well. There's only one thing I'd like to mention, that is when the owner came to us last fall, he said if we continue to operate, he would like to increase the rent to make it affordable to build a hay shed to farm his 96 acres of hay and keep it in a better condition. So we agreed to that, and he is leaning on that to get his loan to build the hay shed, which is it's almost completed right now. So that's one thing that happened, and it happened before this got passed, which is kind of, you do sit on edge when you get to this point of time, because of the way Tim actually said it's the only one in the township like this. So just to fill the other councillors in how it started, I had come into the township office and asked what we need, and there's an individual that didn't understand what we were trying to do, and he said, just go ahead and cut. So we were operating illegally for 1 year or so. And that's when somebody said, what kind of noise is that? So I think that answers your question, Shelley, that at this point in time, everybody I've met in Linwood says, I hope it's going well. We don't hear it. And they're definitely not saying the truth to me if they want me to shut down, is the feeling I get, because we've milled lumber for these people. I think I'd say we'd have a very good relationship with the people of Linwood at this time.
Any questions? Councillor Harker?
How often do you operate the sawmill there? Is it a daily thing or?
No, it's not. We do logging, probably safe to say 10 months of the year. And then in the wet seasons, we hang out at the mill and cut up logs. So I'd say 2 months of the year is a give or take. So it's part-time.
Any other questions? Good. Okay, we're going to call the public meeting to a close. I'll need a motion that the public meeting with respect to ZBA 1-255055 Amont Line adjourn, and the committee of the whole meeting resume. Moved by Councillor Wagner, second by Councillor Seven. All in favor? And that's carried. We're going to move to recreation. Councillor Wagner.
I don't believe I have anything. I don't have any service board reports unless somebody has something. I'm not really sure how many active service boards we have other than Hawksville. So, there any staff reports?
No staff. Director's report.
No staff reports, right? Okay, then a director's update, please.
Thanks, Councillor Wagner. I do have a director's update tonight. Outdoor activities have begun in our parks with soccer and ball seasons beginning in the last couple of weeks. Things are going well. The soccer program in Wellesley has moved out to the new complex, and so far the comments have been very positive. The splash pad will open tomorrow on May 28th. Watch for social media update tomorrow morning. We just got the public health approval late this morning. All outdoor washrooms have been open for the season. The outdoor court in Hawksville is having pickleball and basketball lines painted on them on June the 10th. Pickleball nets will be on site at each of the outdoor courts, and they will be stored in deck boxes at each court for residents to use at their leisure. Our summer students have started. Returning students, we have our Morgan Schott and Shelby Vanderheiden. Our new students are Carter Trussell and then a high school student, Brody Bartlett. You will see our summer students cutting grass, watering flower baskets, doing flower bed maintenance, and other outdoor maintenance as required. We've also hired a new customer service representative, Jeremy Veras, started with us 2 weeks ago and is fitting very well with the team. And lastly, we have hired Wanda Schaefer-Schilling on a part-time basis to help fill in the vacant program coordinator role. Wanda has recently retired from the city of Cambridge and comes from the recreation department with a wealth of knowledge in recreation programs. So Wanda will be with us up until early July. That's all I have, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Just a comment. I was walking by to the Wellesley Park with the lower soccer field. It's just covered with kids last night. It was nice to see. And that park it's just alive when the sun's out and it's a little bit warm and it's not raining. There's a lot of people out there. So it's and the ball diamonds, they're still hitting baseballs into the dog park, and that's, my dog doesn't like that. So I'll make that comment.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we will move to planning and development. Councillor Brick.
We have a staff presentation, Tim Van Hitty, Director of Development Services, and Laura Felipe, Manager of Business and Industrial Development, Region of Waterloo, regarding the Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy.
Thanks, Councilor Brick. I feel like I didn't even leave. my colleague Laura, Matthew here from the region. It's an exciting project that's starting to come to it's the end of the beginning. Maybe we call it the end of the beginning. How's that? Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy. So it's been a little while. It's been a minute, but I think we've come to a good place, and we're here to present it to you tonight and seek your endorsement on it. So thanks, Amy. So what is the Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy? Well, it's a collaborative document that outlines our community's collective economic development priorities. And the key part about this is that it was jointly developed. And I think can't be understated. It's a working group of all 7 area municipalities, the region, and Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, Waterloo EDC. And the whole reason of doing economic development together is to increase efficiency, also to identify and work on collaborative initiatives, as well to support a coordinated regional and strategic approach. And I think that this document does that. It's certainly an upgrade. If you ever read the 2015 one, maybe Joe, perhaps you did, it was a bit of a cumbersome strategy. It was quite lengthy. It was like a lot of action items to track. I think this one's a little bit more streamlined and intuitive, and we'll get to it in the next couple slides. So I won't go through this in great detail, but basically it kind of outlines the areas where Waterloo EDC, the region, the area municipalities come together on economic development. So Waterloo EDC, very much at the 30,000 foot level, doing international trade missions and taking inquiries in from businesses that want to move here and closing deals on getting businesses to come to our community. Municipal partners, us, we do things like development, cluster development, employment lands, official plan, infrastructure, wraparound supports that make our community such a great place, quality of life items, parks, arts and culture, housing, transit we heard about tonight. And then also, obviously outside of the government world, we have a number of community partners, industry partners working on tourism, events, education and training, our universities and colleges, and of course the startup businesses themselves that are very unique to our region. So if we split that up into what do area municipalities do and what do the region do, we focus more on the local, as you know, local employment lands development, business retention and expansion, creating relationships, small business support, and obviously our community improvement plan. That's a big part of what we do here, right? Is supporting business in terms of grant and funding opportunities for things they want to do to improve their business. At the regional level, they look at, again, shovel-ready employment initiatives. They're working on aviation and aerospace sector development. They look at some pretty significant land development projects. They're looking at obviously the airport, the Breslau GO station. These are all wraparound supports that help in economic development. And they, of course, also provide a business development lens to regional services. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura for a few slides, and then I'll be back because I know that you love hearing from me.
You think?
Good evening, Council. Thank you very much for having me, my first time in with you, and excited to talk to you about the Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy and the engagement that we did during the development of this body of work. So over the course of 2023 and 2024, we did extensive research and community engagement with more than 1,800 members of the community heard in the process. This included hundreds of members of the business community, newcomers to the community, children, youth, students, and Indigenous community members. Each working group member, I should say, contributed to the engagement, research, drafting, and execution of the strategy, and will continue to play a critical role in regional economic development beyond 2025. The desktop research for this body of work included review of significant plans and strategies that shape economic development in Waterloo Region, including recent municipal strategic plans, official plans, area municipal economic development strategy, the region's corporate climate action plan, the Transform Waterloo Region strategy, the Job Sites Challenge report, and many others. And over the course of doing that body of work, we were able to develop 5 shared regional economic development priorities, which we will get into in a couple slides. If we can go on to the next slide, we'll actually dive into a little bit about the research and engagement summary and what we learned from that process. So from a community context perspective, we learned that wraparound services to support our workforce are critical, including affordable housing, childcare and healthcare services, cultural, arts and events activities, and all of these things influence talent attraction and retention here within Waterloo Region. We also learned that our ethno-cultural diversity is strong, but there are inequities and challenges faced by racialized and equity-deserving groups in the workforce, including Indigenous peoples, newcomers and immigrants, people with mental and physical disabilities, women, and LGBTQIA+ identifying individuals. There's also a misalignment between job seekers and employers in the community, which is noted by the fact that we have a very high labor force participation rate, and then we also have a fairly high unemployment rate. So we have lots of people looking and lots of people posting jobs, but there seems to be a disconnect between what is being posted in the job descriptions and the skills that are being put forward. So we're working closely with our workforce development partners to help fill that gap. In terms of the economic context, we learned that there's strong growth in residential building permit approvals, but there's a need to accelerate and incentivize residential building construction for approved permits to address continuous affordability and availability challenges in the real estate and rental markets. We did note that year over year, there's been a big drop in the construction starts, so looking to see what we can do to help move that process along. Waterloo Region's sectors and clusters are diverse and present opportunities for improving economic resilience and sustainability, growing local supply chains, and bolstering investment attraction. There is strong investment appetite from Waterloo Region from local Canadian and international firms, but firms face barriers to entry, including a significant shortage of serviced employment lands and the associated infrastructure to support that investment. And finally, business priorities must be reflected in the economic development planning to support growth, including mitigating and adapting to the effects of climate change, improving access to public transit for employment lands, as we talked about earlier, and supporting the scaling of Waterloo Region's innovation ecosystem. And we'll move on to the next slide. So quick data snapshot. Waterloo Region continues to be one of the fastest growing communities in Canada. That $7 billion number there that you see, that represents, that's the 2022 number, and it represents the annual manufacturing spend in Waterloo Region. So we're seeing about 60% of the manufacturing sector's annual spend leaving our community, which really represents a big opportunity for us to bolster our supply chain, especially in light of some of the recent tariff conversations with our counterparts down to the south. Attainable housing and access to a family physician also continues to be a challenge here. Again, we need more serviced employment lands to attract jobs and invest in to attract investment and jobs to Waterloo Region and support local business expansion. While our unemployment rate remains high, so does our population growth and our opportunity to better align job seekers and employers, as I mentioned earlier. And with inflationary pressures, like rent, continue to be a challenge for our community. So every conversation that we've had, the data reviewed and the survey responses has informed the strategy that we're sharing with you today. And on the next slide, you'll see our 5 strategic pillars. They're talent, land readiness, scaling, local innovation, strategic sector support, and the most non-traditional of the bunch is actually quality of life. What we've really seen is that that quality of life piece is really key to the talent attraction and investment, investing the employers who are asking what our affordable housing list looks like, how many units we have kind of in the pipeline. They want to know about family physician wait lists and accessibility. They want to know about childcare spots. All of those things are questions that we're getting from investors who are looking at our community, which has raised that profile of quality of life to become one of our strategic pillars. So I'll pass it over to Tim here in a second to tell you a little bit more about those and what Wellesley is doing to contribute to each of those.
Thank you. That's great, thanks. Thanks, Laura. That was a really good snapshot of what we, the type of engagement we did. It was quite worthwhile and extensive. So Obviously, the engagement, led to kind of a rethinking of how the plan was developed, and the strategic pillars are kind of a little bit easier to understand and easier to measure. The first is talent, so we worked on a talent plan. We had a consultant help us with that, and working on attraction, retention, reskilling, those types of things that are all important. This is largely being led by Waterloo EDC and others. We are certainly supporting that work, but it's probably not our main, like as a township, when I say us, our main focus. But we certainly are contributing to that and collaborating within information sharing and all those good things. Land readiness is certainly one of them that we have a little bit more control of at the local level, and certainly securing talent and sorry, I got to switch my page now, don't I? Land development projects and associated infrastructure strategies for long-term planning require increased focus. I think we all know that. We've heard that a lot. You've heard it from myself, from the mayor, from developers. And some of the things that we're working on, we're either leading or participating in a number of projects. Number one is the Wellesley Water and Wastewater Master Plan to make sure we have the infrastructure support moving forward. Also the Rural Investment Readiness Strategy, which you'll hear a little bit more about soon. Looking at our employment lands feeding into the official plan review, looking at kind of our shortfall of employment lands and what we can do about that, one of the pieces of that. And of course, the review and update of the official plan, which is forthcoming, which I'll mention in my director's update a little bit later. Scaling local innovation, improving investment readiness in key sectors, and coordinating advocacy efforts to grow emerging sectors. So this involves identifying critical service gaps for small and medium enterprises, SMEs, with a focus on retention. So a number of other pieces to this puzzle. We're also participating or leading a number of projects to support these goals. Things like that would include creating relationships with Waterloo EDC. We have a business outreach program with Waterloo EDC where they're leading and we're supporting them in going out and asking businesses what they need, some of our biggest employers in the region. And we're hearing a lot of the same things, which is it's not good that we're hearing them, but it's good that we're hearing consistency, and we need those wraparound supports to make sure that they can get employees working in their businesses to come out to the township to work there so they can continue to operate, those types of things. Strategic sector support, so supporting local business retention, again, and expansion, and increasing collaboration to support entrepreneurship and innovation. And again, a lot of that is relationship building. We've done a lot of that through the CIP as well, right, where we've brought the businesses in and asked them what they need from us and try to respond to that with something like a community improvement plan. Quality of life is that catch-all of the what we call the wraparound supports now. It's been called different things over different years, but that's what we're calling them now, as wraparound supports. And these are the things that make our community a great place to come if you want to be a business or an employee or anything. So certainly a lot of the things that we're working on in the official plan, we're looking at reviewing our arena lands, right, to see if that could contribute to the betterment of the community somehow. We don't know how yet, but we're certainly seeking feedback on that. And of course, housing approvals, we continue to work with our available land and try and get that moved forward in a measurable and careful way so that it's contributing to the betterment of the community. So last slide for me, 2 slides to go, I promise. Implementation. So what happens next? Laura's going to talk about the next steps of how this is being endorsed around the region, but essentially we're led by a working group, and our plan is to meet biannually to report on our progress towards the strategic pillars. We have a number of projects that each municipality kind of lists under each of those pillars. We do as well. Things like the official plan, the community improvement plan, others will add as we go, rural investment strategy. And the idea is that we measure those and report back. And so the idea would be that we report annually to the steering committee, and then presumably we'd come back here, or I would come back here and give you an update on every year on how we're working towards those goals. So I'll turn it over to Laura for the last kind of next steps this year, and take any questions when we're done.
All right, so the next slide is our last slide, and in terms of next steps. So we did originally bring this to Regional Council in January. The plan has been, for the last 6 months, we've been working with all of the area municipal working group partners to get the body of work in front of their councils, and we're almost through the list now. The strategy has also been posted on the Engage WR website for additional public review and input during that period of time. We're expecting to get this back to Regional Council for final endorsement sometime in the fall. And once that has happened, we will kick off those biannual working group meetings that Tim just talked to us about. So thank you very much. We'd be happy to take your questions, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Bray? No. No, oh, I thought you.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, you're in charge.
Any questions?
Jump the gun.
It's okay.
I got so enthralled with it.
Yeah.
He did look like he was leaning in.
Seeing none, thank you for that presentation.
Oh, I did have a question.
We'll open the floor back up for questions. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we have fun. Anyway, talent attraction. Are you monitoring? Is there any way that you can monitor what we're bringing in from other countries? I mean, we hear about doctor shortages or doctors coming in, and it takes a long time for them to get their certificate or whatever it is. We hear about Harvard University sending a lot of students up this way. Possibility. Is there any way that you can monitor some of this, or?
Well, we do have, and Matthew can certainly top me up if he has any additional comments. In terms of like the students and stuff we're bringing in, we do have good relationships with all of the post-secondary institutions and data sharing agreements where we get good ideas from them about how many students they're kind of bringing in on a regular basis. We also have good relationships with the chambers of commerce, and they're doing a lot of work actively to help recruit physicians abroad and try and bring them back. Interestingly, Ireland is a place that Canadians go for medical college really often. It's, if you can't get into a Canadian medical college, you'll go to Ireland. So they're, directing a lot of their efforts out towards that way to try and bring Canadian students home and repatriate them here. We also work closely with the the Waterloo, Wellington, Dufferin Workforce Planning Board, who take a look at the numbers of where people are coming from, how far people are actively commuting on a daily basis as well. So we have a good idea of how many people are kind of coming in and out of the community to come here to work, and how many people are leaving and going to other places. So I wouldn't say we have our finger on one particular number, but we do have a bunch of different data sources that enable us to get a view on that. Waterloo EDC as well is working constantly to help support with bringing people in with work visas from other countries as well. So that's another place where we can kind of look to get some of those data points, and certainly something we could take into consideration to monitoring at a more holistic level as we move forward.
Okay. Just a quick comment then too. I read through it. I didn't read every word but I read a lot of it. And there seemed to be a pretty significant focus on the rural areas and the value of the rural areas to the bigger picture, to the region of Waterloo. And I just want to say that I appreciate seeing that, because it's something that we hadn't seen for quite a number of years. So just that comment, and I'll leave that one with you.
Very happy to have it have the focus. It has the focus it does because of the feedback that we received from the community. So, it's important to the over 1,800 members that we heard in the community here too. So thank you for your comment.
Any last questions? Seeing none, thank you for that report. Moving on to P&D 8/2025, 2025 Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy. I need a motion that the Council of the Township of Wellesley endorse the 2025 Waterloo Region Economic Development Strategy. I have a mover, Councillor Seven, seconded, Councillor Wagner. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimous. P&D 9/2025 zoning bylaw amendment 0125 for 5055 Almond Line. I need a motion that the Council of the Township of Wellesley adopt the zoning bylaw for file ZBA 01-25 to permit a sawmill at 5055 Almond Line as a temporary use for a period of 3 years. May I have a mover? Councillor Herget, seconder. Mayor Nowak, discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that's carried. Would the director like to step back up to the podium?
Thank you, Councillor Brick. I think I'll sit. Famous last words, quick short update. The CIP has been endorsed now. Thank you very much, and all that great work. We're going to open the application period on June the 3rd, and we've sent emails out to our business list, and we'll be continuing to market that and to promote the programs. We have a few interested businesses already, so that's good to see. The second is the official plan update. The request for proposals for consulting assistance is going to close on Friday, May the 31st. And then we're going to try and get a quick turnaround to you for June 10th with a preferred consultant so that we can get that moving. And then one other update, the draft plan, the Strovest draft plan of subdivision, we're making some good progress on that, and we're expecting to bring that back to the June 24th committee meeting for consideration of draft plan approval. So we're working our way through that, and I think we're feeling hopeful that we can get it to you before the summer for consideration. So that's all for me tonight. Councillor, thank you.
Any questions? Mayor?
The servicing on Deering Street, is that moving forward?
We haven't had an update lately. It's obviously, as you guys know, it's draft approved, and I'm sure they're working away on it. But no update recently. I think
There's no work been done yet.
no work been done yet. No.
Yes, I'm done.
Councillor Herget, Road and Bridge.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak. Does the director have an update?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Herget. From an operational side, the dust suppressant application program is ongoing. It's taking a little longer than usual with all the wet weather we've seen over the past couple months, but it has actually helped in the long run. The maintenance gravel program scheduled to start later in June. I apologize for not being able to attend the last council meeting for that contract award, but I appreciate you approving that contract. We've been completely through the township once with the street sweeper. Plow damage repairs are all complete as well. So we're well into summer operations now, which includes roadside mowing, which started late last week and will occur several times throughout the summer. The Transportation Master Plan RFP is out on bids and tenders right now, closes on June 5th, so we're excited to get that process started as well. On a more personal side, I guess, the last week was Public Works Week, which is recognized throughout North America and is meant to bring awareness to the public about the work that the Public Works teams perform, which is a very long list, especially in a small municipality like ours. They do this work to ensure public is able to get to and from their destinations safely on a daily basis. It's also meant to recognize the individuals working in the public works sector. Samantha made several posts last week related to this, so we thank her for that, as well as thank the public works staff here at the township who continue to contribute to and enhance the quality of life for those traveling through and living in our community. And in the spirit of recognizing staff, I believe you're also all aware already that Ryan Baker recently had his application accepted by the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors and is now officially a certified road supervisor. This is a great achievement in our field. It signifies a high level of competence and knowledge and is achieved through a combination of many in-class and online course hours, as well as real-world on-the-job years of experience. So I hope you'll join me in congratulating Ryan on this great achievement. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. Any questions for the director? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to Mayor Nowak.
Okay. We'll go to Property and Fire, Councillor Seven.
All right, thanks, Mayor Nowak. No staff reports. Does Chief Redmond have an update for us?
Thanks, Councillor Seven. Just a few quick things. We're at the time of year our recruits did another live burn recently and some hands-on things. So we'll be seeing them go on the trucks in the next couple of weeks. They'll be responding. I believe they are writing their firefighter 1 test June 11th, I think, or next week, 2 weeks. 8th, June 8th, okay, wrong date, but they are writing down. So that's winding down. It's always a good time of year, and then get them out. They've been anxiously waiting to get through training, get on the trucks. We do have 2 retirements. We had one in Linwood and one in Wellesley. That two firefighters that have retired from the township. Was not too bad. It's actually the first ones this year. We're not seeing some of the larger numbers that we've seen in the past year. So people are staying, they're not leaving the township, and so that's a good sign. And yeah, we have a while when I remember I first came here, for a couple of years we had a pretty active group of firefighters that like to do fire fit. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's a sport they call the toughest 2 minutes in sports, and where they do it's called the Combat Challenge, and we had firefighters that were very involved in it. And I remember when I came here, we had a very involved team. I mean, unfortunately for us, good for the firefighters. They all got hired full time, went on to different departments and joined those combat teams. And our team kind of fizzled out. But in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a resurgence in our firefighters that have really been interested in it. And they're all, they're solid. They're stuck in the roots here. They're not going anywhere, and they just want to do it for fun. And there's 4 or 5 of them that have been going the past few years, and they've got a few dates that they're going to go in. So it's always nice to see them representing the township. They go out there, and it's other fire departments and out there, and it's their own time. They do it on weekends, and it's kind of a networking thing that they do, but it is a good thing. It gets our name out there too. So just if you see some of that stuff on social media, we'll give them the props when they do that. But that's coming up in the summertime as well. So that's all we have. That's all that's really going on. Thanks.
Any questions for Chief Redmond? Seeing none. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Finally get into my lane. We'll talk about admin and finance. Staff reports. The first one, AFNP 16-2025. The recommendation that Council of the Township of Wellesley adopt council staff relation policy as attached to report AFNP 16-2025. Could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Wagner, second by Councillor Seven. And are we going to bring that forward? Who's bring me? Yeah, Grace, our clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak. One of the requirements stemming from Bill 68 was to prepare and implement a policy with respect to the relationship between council members and staff. The purpose of this policy is to guide the nature of business interactions between members of council and staff and provide a framework for the relationship. Council and staff have different roles within the organization, but they share common goals and purposes. Staff and council rely on one another to move the municipality forward. Council also provides political leadership, while staff provide leadership, experience, expertise to implementing council's decision. A key feature of effective and efficient council is an understanding of council staff relationship and the role of each. If you have any questions?
Questions? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. A AF&P 17-2025, kite fighting. The recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley approve the preparation of a bylaw prohibiting kite fighting in the township, and further that the Council of the Township of Wellesley authorize staff to obtain a legal opinion, and further that the Council of the Township of Wellesley hear first, second, and third reading of the bylaw at the June 10th council meeting, and further that the Council of the Township of Wellesley authorize the purchase and posting of signs at all township-owned properties prohibiting kite fighting in the township. Could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Wagner, second by Councillor Seven. And I'm assuming our clerk will bring that forward.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak. I really don't have anything to add unless anybody has any questions.
Councillor Morgan.
Under option 1, prepare a bylaw to ban kite fighting on lands within the township. Is that on township lands or all lands?
On township-owned lands.
Township-owned lands.
All of them? Didn't move that too. All lands, my apologies. There it is. Yes, all lands, my apologies.
Any other questions? Call a question. All in favor? And that's also carried. And we're going to talk about the asset management plan. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Wellesley receive this report for information. Have a mover for that as well. Councillor Brick, second by Councillor Herget. Any questions? I think maybe before we do questions, I think Ethan has a couple slides that you would like to present.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak and councilors. So recently, the asset management plan was finalized by our consultants at Watson, and it has been updated to meet all the requirements set out by the Ontario regulation. So just for some quick background, the first phase of this regulation was approved last May, and then this next phase of the regulation requires the plan to be updated on or before July 1st, 2025. And the main purpose of the asset management plan, again, is to act as a comprehensive long-term plan for all township capital assets, and it enables us to make informed investment decisions regarding our capital assets. So in compliance with the second phase of the regulation, some of the important changes that were made to this phase included a proposed level of service framework for each asset category, life cycle management models, and a comprehensive 10-year financial strategy. And then additionally, the current state of municipal assets have been updated, including condition ratings, replacement costs, and performance measures. So the total updated replacement cost of all municipal assets was estimated at $395.2 million. And then the township share of that, again, with some of the shared roads and structures in the township, is roughly $387 million. So moving on to the proposed level of service framework. This was developed for each asset category. And whereas the previous AMP reported on the current levels of service for each asset class, this plan builds on this by setting targets for each performance measure. So here, using roads as an example, the highlighted item shows the performance measure for PCI, or Pavement Condition Index, for the township's road network. It was determined that the current performance of the township's road network is a PCI of 73.6, and the proposed level of service for this item is a PCI of 75. So for this specific performance measure, changes to this effectively change the frequency of capital projects required for our road segments,
and then therefore also affect the annual costs associated with roads. So moving on here, the next section is the life cycle models. And this again was done for each one of the asset categories. So following the proposed level of service, life cycle models were developed to support these levels of service. So these identify life cycle activities and the required frequency of these activities. Using the roads example again, the life cycle model identifies the life cycle activities required for each asset type. So here for asphalt roads with stormwater underneath it, one life cycle activity would be a mill and overlay. Another one would be a full depth reconstruction where we'd be replacing all the stormwater underneath as well. And each of these have different frequencies associated with them. So the frequency of these activities are set to ensure that the paved road network maintains this average PCI that we set of 75 or greater. So that's the proposed level of service we set for roads. And similar models to this were developed for each asset category that were captured in the report. The result of this process is the total annual life cycle cost that is required to support the proposed level of service frameworks for all assets. So this moves on to the final values that were calculated for this. So the table on the left here shows a breakdown of the annual life cycle funding requirements by asset class. The total annual life cycle funding required was calculated at $5.87 million. And in comparison, the 2025 budget contributed $3.98 million from the tax levy and other current revenue sources towards capital-related needs. These contributions included capital-related reserves and reserve funds, debt servicing costs, and predictable federal and provincial grants, such as the CCBF and the OCIF fund. Overall, the difference between these required annual funding to support the proposed level of service and the township's current capital funding resulted in a funding gap of approximately $1.94 million. So moving on here. So the final section of the plan was to develop a 10-year financial strategy and forecast aimed at addressing this funding gap within a 10-year period. So this financial forecast includes three main assumptions: a capital inflation factor of 4.35% annually, an additional application-based grant funding, which would cover approximately 5% of future capital expenditures, and an annual assessment growth of 2.25% annually. So all of this results in a financial, so the results of the financial forecast show that in order to fully fund lifecycle management strategies and close the funding gap, the tax levy will require an annual increase of 5.99%. And then after incorporating the assessment growth of 2.25%, this results in a 3.66% increase to tax bills per year. So with that, I do have a couple next steps to go over, but if there's any questions or comments, we can open it up to discussion. And
Yep, questions at this point? I did have one. 3.6% annually increase. That also includes a 1% levy for infrastructure and a 0.75, is it, for greening? Is it 0.75 for greening?
So the infrastructure levy would be factored into this already, because we're not looking for that additional increase of the 1% with what's calculated in the asset management plan, but the greening levy is separate. If council wishes to continue with the greening levy, that would be on top.
That would be on top of the 3.66.
Correct.
But the infrastructure levy is not on top of that.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe this includes any capital expenditures as well as estimate for operating cost growth as well.
So reasonably safe to say that growth is going to be a big factor in keeping our tax base down. Right?
So, yeah.
Thought so. Any other questions? You want to continue?
Sure, yeah. So currently, thanks, Ian. So currently we're targeting June 10th to bring the final plan back to council for approval. Before that, we'll have to get any comments or updates we require to our consultants at Watson so they can make those changes in time. So if there are no comments, then I think we would give Peter the go-ahead to finalize the report.
Very good. So we have motion to receive this for information, I believe. Any other questions? And I'll call the question. All in favor? No. I thought I did. Oh. I have a mover and a seconder, Councilor Wagner, Councilor Seven. All in favor then, and that's carried. Rough night. Director's update. Jeff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I don't have many updates to share this evening, but I am happy to share that we have our new financial analyst has started this week, Cassandra Pomeroy, and we're really excited to have her as part of the team. The only other update I have is the M&P, like our annual financial audit, is nearing completion. The FIR will be filed later this week, and we're looking to have M&P in here to present in the month of June at some point, one of the meetings. So we look forward to that. But I'm happy to take any questions if there is any.
Seeing none. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Rick.
If I could just throw one item in, the township was fortunate enough to receive a grant from Waterloo Region Community Foundation of $5,000, and it's towards events to promote community building. So staff have come up with the thought of doing an outdoor movie night at the recreation complex, open to all township residents. So we're proposing that currently, or tentatively, for September 6th, which would be the first week that the kids are back in school again. So the backyard barbecue happens the last week the kids are in school, and then moving forward into the new school year again. So just wanted to put that out to council right now if there's any concerns with that plan, and if not, we would continue to plan for that.
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to information packages. There was one item that I had asked to be brought forward, City of Waterloo to support the need for provincial action on salt pollution and road salt. And I think Chris is going to be discussing this, or Reed.
Sure, thanks, Mayor Noack. I'll comment briefly on it. So in a nutshell, this is asking the province for a provincially adopted set of best management practices for salt use, to control salt use, and to establish limited liability legislation to protect municipalities and contractors from slip and fall claims, as long as they adopt and follow the best management practices that are developed. This would be similar to the idea around the minimum maintenance standards that we use for defense against negligence claims related to road conditions and maintenance. As you're probably aware, most contractors have a hard time finding insurance coverage to perform winter maintenance, and then that additional cost gets passed on to the clients, whether it be municipal or private. And that is because of the risk of these liability claims coming in against them. And because of the risk of the liability claims, contractors tend to use far more salt on the walkways and parking lots than is actually required. But by doing so, they're trying to limit their liability. So this request for legislation and best management practices would help alleviate those issues. And a positive consequence of that is basically the basis for the request, which is to protect the drinking water supply from salt pollution.
So can we give staff direction to support this as well? I think we can do that verbally. Thanks, Chris. Okay, any unfinished business? Where are we? Yeah, you want that? Okay, so for the information, that the information package be accepted as presented, moved by Councillor Herget, second by Councillor Brick. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Unfinished business, no. Closed session. So we're going to go into closed session now, and the motion is that this portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following: 239 3.1 of the Municipal Act, purpose of educating or training the members, and 2, no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of the council or local board or committee and its council staff relationship. Got a motion to go into closed session, moved by Councillor Herget, second by Councillor Brick. All in favor? And that's carried.